Hey guys, welcome to the Average Joe Cooking Show. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit more old school because of the fall weather and of course the great holidays that are coming up. We're going to be doing a pumpkin pie, but we're going to be doing a pumpkin pie from scratch. So stick around, we're going to have some fun. All right, today we are going to be making pumpkin pie from scratch. Now, what I've got here is a small sugar or pie pumpkin. And these are the types of pumpkins you want to use if you're going to be making pies, not the big old jack-o'-lanterns that you see at the stores. These can usually be found inside at the produce department or usually right next to the jack-o'-lantern basket. But you want to look for small pumpkins, roughly a little bit smaller than a volleyball, about 6 to 8 inches in diameter. And very, very simple. What we're going to be doing is we're going to cut this in half, we're going to scoop out the insides, and then we're going to bake it. It needs to bake for about an hour to 90 minutes, depending on how soft you need the insides to get. So we're going to go ahead and get right into this, because I've already got one in the oven that's been baking, so we should be able to scoop out the guts pretty easy. But let's show you what's going on inside this thing here real quick. Now, a lot of people recommend that you do not use a smooth kitchen knife to cut one of these open, because they can slip and you can end up with, hurt fingers or, just an oddly shaped pumpkin half. So what I recommend is a serrated knife. I've even had some people tell me they use small tree saws to cut these things in half. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to very gently start this thing. Now, like I said, I had one earlier that I done, so the next step, obviously, just like you do every year when you're making a jack-o'-lantern, is you want to get all the guts out. Now, I like to save the seeds because the seeds are good to munch on. You roast them for about 15 minutes at 375 with a little bit of salt or your favorite seasoning, and they're really good snacks. So let's get all those seeds out of there. And you also want to try to get as much of the stringy gunk out as possible. You can use a spoon. Some people use an ice cream scoop. But for these smaller pumpkins, this spoon seems to be working just fine. Nice and clean. There we go. On the tops and bottoms, they tend to have to dig a little because they cling really hard there. Making a mess here. So that's basically the idea. Now you're going to want to put these into a 350 oven for about 60 to 90 minutes, depending on softness. After about an hour, take a fork and poke them and turn it. And if it just kind of falls apart, it's ready. A lot of cases you can do them in a steamer as well. And the only problem with that is that you risk the chance of getting a watery pumpkin, which is not a big thing because all you have to do is just drain off the extra liquid. So let's move these out of the way and I'll bring out that pumpkin that I actually have baked in the oven. So where's my rag? There's my rag. Alrighty. Alright, they're cool enough to touch. I let the oven cool down just a little bit. So, like I said, you want to take a fork, stick it into the meat, and twist. You see how that comes apart nice and easy? So what we want to do now is we want to scoop that into a bowl. And what we're going to do is we're going to make pumpkin puree. that's what I have the food processor out for. So, nice. I've also had some people tell me, because of the similarity in taste, if you cannot find a pie pumpkin or a sugar pumpkin like these, you can use a butternut squash, because they're very similar in taste. And the prep method is pretty much the same. You get all the gunk out. You want to try to have at least 3 cups of pumpkin gunk. I don't know what else to call it. There you go, that helps. Okay, there's one. The last little bit of it. And there's about 3 cups worth there. Rinse my mitts off real quick. I got my food processor. That's what happens when you let the kids put the dishes away. All right. So we're going to scoop in pumpkin glop. And if you're unsure what puree means, basically we're going to turn this into the consistency of baby food. It's going to be kind of like a thick sauce almost. Now we're going to let this run for about 40 or 50 seconds. And then we'll scrape the sides and turn it on for about another 20. Now remember, the longer you let this go, the smoother your pumpkin's going to be, your pie's going to be. You don't want too much of a grainy texture. What you're looking for is any stringy pieces. You want to keep doing this until all those big chunks, and it's nice and smooth. I don't know if you can get a look at that. Nice and smooth, no stringy pieces at all. Just like baby food. Tastes like baby food right now. All right. So, this is where we'll put our pumpkin puree. Well, that's slippery. You don't want to cut yourself on the blades. I just put the spoon in the sink. Wouldn't be an average Joe show. All right, so yeah, there we go. Nice and smooth. All right, that should be good. Now, to this mixture, what we're going to add are a few basic ingredients. Now, there are seasoning out there. There is a seasoning out there, pumpkin pie seasoning or spice. You can use that if you want, but it's just not the same. You know, growing up, having all this stuff made for you by scratch, when you have something that's different, it's not the same. So you want to go ahead, and you most likely have most of these ingredients in your cupboard already. And what we've got here is a 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, we've got a teaspoon of allspice. No, that's clove, sorry. And a teaspoon of allspice. Yeah. To that, we're going to add a half a teaspoon of ginger and a half a teaspoon of salt. Just regular table salt. You can use kosher salt too. We're also going to use, what is that, a cup of sugar? Yeah, a cup of sugar. And 1.5 cans of evaporated milk. Now this is basically 2 12-ounce cans. So I want to go ahead and use 18 ounces. And where is my can? There it is. So you can measure it if you want, but I usually just eyeball stuff anyway. So, and I just broke the cardinal rule of evaporated milk. I opened it without shaking it. Always shake your evaporated milk. So what we're going to do is we're going to set that one aside for later. Because I'm going to make 2 pies, basically. And, but I'm showing you guys how to do the one. So 3 cans of evaporated milk will make 2 pies. There's 1.5. Also, we're going to add, where's my eggs? There's my eggs. 4 eggs. I almost forgot. Some vanilla. So, 1. Now, if you want a denser pie, you can use less evaporated milk and you can use 1 less egg. But I like my pie a little bit light and fluffy. So we're going with, where's my towel? There it is. So we're going with 4 eggs and 1.5 cans. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a half a teaspoon of vanilla. Now I'm using the pure vanilla extract, not the imitation vanilla, just because I believe it gives it more of a flavor. And there's my half a teaspoon, but why stop there? Let's go there. Make it yummy. You can't go wrong with a little bit more vanilla. Okay, now if you have a stand mixer, this is where you just want to put it in the stand mixer for about 10 or 15 seconds until it's all nice and incorporated. If you got a hand mixer, you can use that. Or if you have what I have, a whisk, you get beaten. All right, and there we go. That is your pumpkin pie filling. Now it's very soupy. Don't worry, it'll firm up once it's in the oven. Now we have to move on to the pie crust, and we're going to make a quick pastry pie crust. This is your standard pastry, shortening, a little bit of flour, a little bit of cold water, roll it out, and then make your pie out of it. So give me a second to clean up my counter, and we'll be right back. Okay, so what we've got here is I've got a cup, or 1 1/4 cup of flour, and to that I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which is just a little bit, about right there. Now, I have, bear with me here, we're using lard again. I know if you've watched the Biscuits and Gravy episode, trust me, and if you've made it, you understand. And if you have a grandparent or if you are one of those older folks that watch the show, you know what I'm talking about when I say use lard instead of shortening. The difference is night and day. So, we've got the lard. I've got my trusty pastry cutter. And we've got some cold water here. And what we're going to do is just a little bit at a time, we're going to incorporate all this together. So I only want to do a little bit at a time until that lard is all used up. There we go. A little bit more. Alright, cut into it. There you go. Now the dough should start looking like it has little chunks of peas in it. That's the size of the little dough balls that are what we're trying to form here with lard when it gets cut up into it. Let's go ahead. A little bit more in there. And this will be enough pie crust. We're probably actually going to have a little bit left over. And you know, that's another episode, but this pie crust, you know, it's a standard pie crust, but they're great for anything, especially if you need to make like a pastry crust. And pumpkin pies, apple pies, cherry pies, whatever kind of pie you want, besides those fruit pies, this pie crust is also good for a nice meat pie or a nice chicken pot pie. Those are really good. The best thing I like about chicken pot pie or making my own stuff instead of going to the store and getting the frozen stuff is that I know what kind of ingredients I'm putting into it. So if you're one of these people that, you know, don't like a certain vegetable, say like celery or carrots or something, you can omit that from your recipe while you're making your filling for your chicken pot pie. So you can make it how you want. Okay. So basically what you're looking for is this. Your dough is going to have kind of like a really grainy texture. It's not white and powdery like it used to be. And so to that, we're going to start adding a tablespoon at a time of cold water till we get to about 5 tablespoons. Once the dough starts forming, you'll know, but about 5 tablespoons should be enough. There's one. You want to do it one at a time too. There we go. Now the dough is starting to form. You can see everything's starting to stick together now. And you don't have any more dry bits. So, we're going to call it good with that. I am going to flour my hand, flour this table, and we're going to roll out some pie crust. Don't have to put a lot of flour out. Just a little, just so it won't stick. Get it on your hands. Cover your rolling pin. Like I talked about, if you guys watched the biscuits and gravy episode, if you have a rolling pin, great. If you don't, there's plenty of things around your house you can use in lieu of a rolling pin, such as a wine bottle, a beer bottle, anything that's nice and heavy and cylindrical in shape. So I've had people actually tell me that they were so desperate they used a can of soup. It works. So we're forming this dough ball. Now I'm gonna flatten this out, fold it over. And what we want to do is we want to roll it out to a nice pie crust. You know what? That just, bear with me here. There we go. Soak up all that water. There. Now we got the elasticity that we want. I told you before I'm not a baker, but I do know what it should feel like, and it wasn't quite feeling right. It was still a little bit too crumbly. So we just added a little bit more water to it, and that's what you can do if you find that your dough is nice. All right, so now we got to clean this off again, otherwise we're going to have stickiness everywhere. All right, we're back in action. Just had to make some room. There we go. Don't smash into it, just kind of gently start rolling it out. I do it in 90-degree increments. Start separating, you can pinch it together. Of course, it's not going to stay. Start sticking to your rolling pin, just go ahead and put a little bit more of the flour on it. There we go. What I'm doing is I'm just sealing this up where it's split because I want a nice whole piece of dough. Okay, so we should be able to go ahead and put this on our pan now. This is what I have learned from other bakers is supposed to roll it up in your rolling pin like so. And then, come on out. Unroll it over the pie tin or pie glass, whatever you have. And you don't be afraid, you can use a regular old pie tin if you want. There we go. So all we're doing is laying it flat. Gonna seal up tears that we have. Any excess that's hanging over the edge, we'll fill in these gaps. And you got some scraps here that if you need to fill in more holes, you can, but I think we're good. Well, there's a little hole right there. Okay, now, getting ready to put your pie into the oven. You want to make sure that your oven is set at 450 degrees. And there we go. And once it goes into the oven, you're going to watch it for about 15 minutes, and then you're going to turn it down to 350. So let's go ahead and we'll add our pie filling. Another little trick you can do, you can see that I still have that cookie sheet out, that old one that I beat up all the time. You place the pie tin on the cookie sheet so that way it's a little bit more easy to handle. It smells like pumpkin pie. So there we go. Now I've got plenty here to do, about 3 or 4 pies. We're going to stick this in the oven. All right. So now we just get to clean up and wait for about 45 minutes. Then we'll give it a little poke with a knife, and if the knife comes out clean, it's ready. If not, we'll have to leave it in there for about another 15 minutes. And that's basically pumpkin pie in a nutshell. Put it in the oven, 450 for 15 minutes, bring it down to about 350, and then cook it for another 60 minutes. Check it after about 45. And that's it. So come on back and the pie will be done, and I hope you guys try this at home. All right, so pie's been in the oven now for about an hour, and we're gonna go ahead and check it out. And we're gonna pull it out. Oh, that looks good. Place that on the wall there. Like I said, you want to take a knife and you just want to poke it into it. Comes out clean. You just let that cool. It'll start firming up a little bit more once it's cooled for about 30 minutes. And once it's cooled down, I'm pretty sure it will last probably about maybe 5 minutes until my boys and friends get a hold of it. We'd like to encourage you to give that recipe a try, and if you do, post a comment on our Facebook page, The Average Joe Cooking Show, and let us know what you think. As always, we'd like to thank Weinigers for sponsoring our food. We appreciate all they do for us, and we encourage everyone to go out to Weinigers and check out some of the great deals they have at their stores. And until then, happy eating.